Welcome back to the MarketingBox podcast. You guys have met Shawn Burst. He's in almost all of our podcasts, but you have not met the power duo, our CFO and CEO, husband and wife, Shawn and Angelina Burst. So today we are going to do a deep dive into how our company came to be, their marriage, what it's like running a company together.
Yeah, I would say it's been a really interesting ride, a very fun ride, but sometimes a bumpy ride. But it's it's been quite the journey. But you know, I wouldn't trade any of it for anything in the world, man. Just because how lucky are you when you get to wake up every day and your soulmate in life also is your confidant in business, and you know, figuring out how to make that all work and thrive with people that are literally on the exact opposite side of almost every issue. The way we see the world is a lot different. It's been a challenge, but what it showed me is that, you know, anything that you put your mind to and you really focus on, it can turn out good. And I think that's what this story is. After 20-something years, we've figured it out, right? But it wasn't like that from the beginning, man. It was chaotic in the beginning from a bunch of different reasons, you know?
Yeah, it's funny you say that because before the camera started rolling, we were talking about like, man, I forgot what it was like before things were good because they've been good for so long.
Yeah.
And that's just because you guys have really come together. And I mean, you've been doing this how long? Like 20-something years?
20-something years.
Wow.
Yeah.
So we've had a lot of experience figuring out how to roll through the kinks and roll through the challenges.
Well, it's an adventure, you know. I think that's what there's some books that I read early on that, you know, that talked about a wife, you know, a spouse, you know, they want an adventure. Like a woman wants an adventure, man, you know, and so that's what I gave her, you know. Yeah, so I read that and I believed it, and I said, "Hey, girl, we are about to go on a safari ride, a bumpy ride, a smooth ride, a roller coaster." But listen, what we're going to always be doing is there's always something we're trying to do that makes no sense when you look at it in the physical world, right? In the natural world, our goals, what we strive for, is all supernatural. You know, we think that. We're blessed. We're Christians. God guides our paths. And when you really, what we've seen in our life is for every hurdle or every obstacle, what's waiting on the other side is so beautiful that it's unbelievable. And so, you know, it's taught us, we've built that muscle memory that when shit gets tough, that's when it's about to get fun, you know? And so when you are able to look at life like that, then nothing really bothers you, dude. You know, if you don't have fear, you know, you can't have faith is absent with fear, right? So you have, you know, one of the parts of life is it's scary, I guess, you know, maybe it's scary for the man.
It's not predictable.
It's very unpredictable, you know, and I know in my case, I thrive on the unpredictable because that's exciting. It's like, what's over the horizon? What is it? And, you know, I guess.
And as a woman, you look for probably the direct opposite. Like, you like to watch the adventure. You like to be a part of the adventure, but you like to know that you have the security of stability and, you know, being married to Shawn, I learned it's like I married my opposite because of all the things that I admired in another individual. So I admired his like want to go see the world, see what it had for him, make things happen, you know, like, so but it was also things that would have been scary for me that I maybe would not have leapt into, you know, on my own. So so when we say it's been a ride and it's been an adventure, it's him pulling me along, him going on the roller coaster, we going, and then us doing it together, and then me seeing life from a different aspect, and then saying, you know what, this is really great. You know, like I maybe wouldn't have done this on my own, but you know what? Let's do this together. Yeah. It's the whole part of the yin and yang of our marriage is we are opposites, completely opposites. Yeah. But we've in 20-something years learned it being a strength of both of us.
Yeah. It's like having a superpower, because if she was the same as me, golly, we would have crashed and burned a long time ago. So it's been.
And if he was me, we maybe wouldn't have tried.
We wouldn't have done.
You know, we would have eased into it very slowly.
Yeah, I think people, what we didn't have, you know, because my mom we were raised in an entrepreneurial home, right? So my mom, when I think I was 1 or 2 years old, she decided, my dad was a truck driver, drove a beer truck, and my mom was going to work at a place and having to leave us at daycare. And she woke up one day and said, I don't want to, I'm not leaving my kids anymore, man. This is not good. So I'm going to start a daycare center in my house. And I think for her first ad, she put in the paper she charged $5 a week or $10 a week for a kid. And so I got to watch my mom, because my mom and dad were young when they started to have children. We were poor, really poor. But man, I was there to see my mom greet those kids, start that business. Those parents would come and, to leave your kid with someone else. They didn't have cell phones or anything back in those days. It's like you were leaving those kids. And I watched her do this tap dance sales pitch presentation to these parents. She didn't know she was doing it, but she developed this process where they'd come in, she'd meet them. Us little rugrats would run up there and say hi, because the kids that we watched were in the house that I lived in. So I came home from school every day or spent time with 15, 20, 30, 40 other kids in my house. But watching my mom do that and watching her just do it with grace and with ease, and as chaotic as it was, I think those things prepared myself to go out and just, I always wanted to be my own guy. It was never about going to work for somebody else. And I think it was because I saw something created from scratch, and I saw where it put 5 kids through private school. We traveled, we did, once everything got up and rolling. And so I think that was one of those things that it's like, man, you can do anything if you just put your mind to it. And it might not be the easiest thing in the world, but I can see somebody who stuck with it and look at what was the outcome of it, So it's like, this is all I want to do. I just got to go figure out what it is.
And it's really amazing. They always say, God bless the broken road, the path that you're supposed to be on. Eventually, you'll get yourself there. You might take different turns, but it's so funny because yesterday we were talking and you were telling the story about back whenever you were in the car business, and I asked you, I said, I wonder if your coworkers ever thought, man, that guy's going to own his own business one day, because you said, you weren't purposely going against the grain, but you were always your own person. It's like somehow deep down you knew that you were going to be your own business one day. So let's go back to the beginning of how you guys met.
Yeah, so I was in the car business. I actually was working for a place out in New Orleans East called Bill Watson Nissan. And I had gone with a couple of my friends. I worked at Ray Brandt, and the GM left. And you know how it works in the car business, that he takes his team with him. So I wound up going to this other dealership with them. And then, anyway, I jumped to another dealership, and then they cut my pay, right? So when they cut my pay, it was actually at Banner Chevrolet. Rick Flick, great guy, best job I ever had in the car business. But I went in and put together a pay plan, and when it all said and done, a year or so into it, I was making too much money. And so they brought me in and cut my pay. And, I didn't play those. I was hard-headed. I probably should have stayed there and said, man, I'm still making great money. But I quit, and I wound up getting placed over at a dealership that Angelina was working in the accounting department on. And so that's how we met. I came in as this hot shop finance consultant that played by his own rules, and here was this little very practical step-by-step, follow the rules.
As we say in the office, GSD.
Yeah.
Get stuff done.
Yeah.
Right? He says it's something else.
Yeah.
And he comes in, and, he comes in at 10 or 11. I got stuff to get done. And I'm like, this guy is like, who's this guy? And I knew what he was making when he came in. And I was like, who's this guy? He has his own hours. Things got to get done now. Let's go. And he did his stuff, but he was doing things on his own time. So the funny thing is I did not like him. I thought he was arrogant. I was like, he's just, and all I did was work with guys. That's what I did. I had all the salespeople I dealt with. I had all the, managers and everything. And
she was the bottleneck to get the sales guys paid.
Yes,
she, processing the jobs.
And getting contracts out and stuff like that. And, he came in, and I remember there was 2 other guys that had been working there. And they kind of told him, without me knowing, he told me later, but they kind of told him, I don't know what you did to her, but she's friends with everybody, but she does not like you.
Well, dude, I knew this because I'd get in at 10, she'd come into the office, and I'd be like, she'd be just all business-like. She'd have a stack of deals, and it's like, go over them. I'm like, she'd leave. I'd be like, golly, she's a bitch, man. Well, I didn't know she didn't like me. It's like, dude, she thought I was an asshole. So. And I wasn't trying to be. I just went in there, and, dude, I had something to do, and they brought me in as the guy, right? So the department was broken. I needed to fix it. So it's just no BS. Listen, I'm there for work. I'm here for business. I'm trying to get paid. That's all I give a shit about is get. I want to get paid.
He didn't really care about the paperwork that needed to get done in order for it to get paid. So he was like, I'm just bringing money in. Like, I'm bringing money in.
Yeah.
And which is kind of what we deal with right now. You don't want to deal with the accounting side
Nope.
of anything. He just wants to bring the money in.
That's been a great thing about having somebody that you trust, you know.
Yeah.
My brothers had a situation where they had somebody working in accounting. They stole $1 million from them, you know. So
we know several businesses
several
that has happened to. We
should
know
have happened
at
to-
least
it
2
happened to
local
Franco's.
businesses.
Yeah, Franco's. It was all over the news and everything, man. They got
In
them for
teenies, yeah.
in
There was a couple of businesses, and it's like my heart feels for the people, because here you feel like people that you've had in your organization, some of them, 15, 20 years or something, was in their organization, and they had just been stealing, you know. They just started, you know.
And
But
it's always a concern when you're running fast,
it
you know.
is.
I'm not, and listen, there's certain things, and this is one of the really cool things about, you know, really understanding each other and being married and working together. I think it can be a real advantage. She knows what kills I'm a glass half full guy. I wake up every day. Number one thing I want to do is I want to have fun. And lawyers, bills, all that's contracts.
agreements,
It just sucks all the energy out of me.
Right. We just go over the hardcore details. Like we're just like what you need to know. You need to know ... and then that's it. You know. And we at one point had a business that was 150 employees, and I remember our production team. You know, we probably had about 8 of us in a production team, and I would tell them all the time, because sometimes getting things done or the tedious work it's just monotonous and aggravating, and, you know, you're relying on other people and things like that. And there would become like a negativity about some of it. And I would always say, like, hey, guys, my husband's role here is to sell and bring business in, and your job is to manage the client. And, like, don't put this on him. The environment around here needs to be positive, because that's what he thrives in, you know. He doesn't want to hear about all the complaints, about all the details, about all because his mind is that full, you know.
And it's part of life.
All the time, yeah.
Shit happens, dude, you know. So it's like, one of the things that we've done here, and you can probably attest to it, Mike can too, we've created an environment for people to thrive. Negativity, gossip, back talking, it's not tolerated here, because to me it's a buzzkill, and it's totally
like cancer.
And
it really
it's
does
like a
in
cancer.
An organization. And then it's a negative feeling that kind of keeps lingering around. And really, it's like, you know, there's a lot of things you got to wash off, you know. And I mean, my perspective, I feel like it's a lot with employees that work in a company, and they're not really happy, but they're not moving on. You know, they're not going. So like, or there hasn't been a talk, or there hasn't been, and maybe they're wanting to do something different, or they're just, you know, but they like the comfort that they're in, but they're not willing to take the leap onto the next thing. So then they're kind of in their business, you know, or doing what and they're really not thriving in life, and they're not thriving for the company either.
Yeah, listen,
know?
Will's an example of this, you know, and I really have I have a lot of respect for Will, because Will knew. We sat and really talked to everybody when they come and join our team and we work together. We don't micromanage people, and really we want people here that believe in our vision and where we want to go, because we're trying to do great things. You know, we're a small company, 12 people, but we're on the verge of just exploding, right? And so when you have a small team, you're only as strong as your weakest link. Everybody's got to be bought into the vision, to the culture, to where you want to go. And if not, it's just not a good place. And, you know, that's one of the things I really respected about Will, is Will and I had that talk. And, you know, I think deep down he gut checked himself and said, man, this isn't really what I want to do. Shawn's explained, life's too short to do something that you don't want to do and you're not thriving in. And so he left the job and went and worked in, somewhere else that in a totally different field, not using the skills he was using for us, because that's where he wanted to go. Like that was the best path for his life. And so we only want people here who want to be here and that understand it, because we don't micromanage people. We don't browbeat people. We don't do any of those kind of things. You have to come in and own your position. And listen, it's kind of like real estate. When you bring an employee in and you hire someone, on the front end is where you have to make your money, asking the right questions, understanding things. And we actually talked about this the other day with the gentleman, Bill Campbell, that he obviously he hires talent, but he basically is evaluating your character, your mindset, your potential, your persistence. Those are the things. And that's what we look for too. And I think when you surround yourself with people of those like-minded things, that's where listen, they're not out there all the time. You got to dig to find them. But, as an example with you, I knew you didn't soon get up out of the chair when we interviewed you. Yeah. And what I told Mike, I said, Mike, we'll figure out how to do this.
He actually turned and looked over to my office and said, like, she's it. You know? And it's amazing how, we don't have a large staff of people here, but because we have people that thrive in what they do, and they just literally, I say do the work of two people,
or
each
more,
individual,
or more, or
yeah,
more.
Because and then sometimes we're so leery about adding more people in, because you're just like, okay, are they going to work? Or are they going to be another person who has a personality of just getting stuff done, just making things happen, really taking it, not just as a position, but an ownership in it, and seeing the big picture of it all. So, but we've really been blessed with every individual in our business that we are all like-minded in the same aspect. And it's the standard
that y'all set, because whenever I first started, all three of you had said something similar, like, treat this like it's your company. And that forces you to take ownership, like anything that I got it, this is me, I'm going to focus on this. And it really just makes everything go round. If everyone's taking ownership of their stuff, what they need to do, and constantly trying to make that better, it's a smooth wheel, and it just keeps going. Yeah. So that's just the standard that...
It's passion behind what you do.
Yeah.
Hands down, when people care about what they do, when, they thrive in what they do, it just changes. It's not a job. It's a job every day that we need to come to, but it's a part of what we do. It's a part of who we are. It's and it's really been a great experience for Shawn and I to be, through a lot of employees to less employees to really, fine tune and narrow. And then we've really developed great relationships,
big time.
With employees that we have.
The people I work with,
we've been really blessed.
They're our friends.
With, great people that have worked for us over the years. Some have gone on and done different adventures or moved out of state or, but we've really been blessed with the time that we've had them here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Listen, I think it's our job. It's our job. The way when I come in here every day, number one, I feel very responsible for things, but it's my job to make everybody here feel like they're valued and that, that they're cared about and that they're not just a number. And, just the way that life works in general, when you give with no expectation of receiving and it's really genuine, it always comes back to you, dude. So, when I learned, hey, she's talking about employees. You don't ever hear me talking about people that work for me, that do this. These are people that I work with. And that's it's always been that relationship. It hasn't always been like that. In the beginning, it's like, yeah, you know what, I'm starting a business. This is, I got the iron. It works a lot better if you are building a consensus and understanding where everyone's coming from and making sure they're on the same page. I always come out there and just ask, hey, how are you doing today? Like, what's going on? I just want to know if you pay attention to where people are and understand where they are and give them the opportunity to speak. Man, it just, what did we talk about? Trust, right?
Yeah.
If you have that trust between people, and that's one of the things we've built, that's why I think our people do the jobs of 3, 4, 5 people in some cases. And it's simple because there's a lot of details. you have to care a lot when you're working a job that has details, and the details have big implications of big money if there's a mistake. So from our perspective, you have to have good quality people, because if anything breaks down in the chain, the implication is tens of thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars that it could cost you, So it's, to me, it's self-preservation. Shit, these are the people that have your future in their hands. You better treat them like that. That's the case. And I think I see a lot of businesses and a lot of way that people operate. They don't operate like this, and they just make it harder on themselves, because doing this, telling, uplifting people, being generous to people, being kind to people, being, optimistic with people, all that comes back to you is the same thing that you give them. If you give them shit, they're going to give you back shit. If you give them optimism and you give them, we do a lot of personal development here, like we care about people thriving in life, not just here at work, but in your personal life. So yeah, that's just the way we've approached it. I think sometimes it's hindered us because the group has stayed, these people like you and like Mike and like, they're not just laying around. Yeah. These people are employed. They're thriving in life. So to go find them and have convinced them to become a part of your team, takes a big vision, takes purpose, takes a lot of these things. And so this is all the things that we've learned. We do them now, and that's what I was telling you before the podcast. It's been so good and so easy because we figured out how to work within each other, and I also figured out the game. Man, this is a game. So why not play the game to win? The game is bring good people in, uplift and empower them, encourage them, give them a big vision, a big dream. And man, that's exciting to people, dude. So everybody's on the same wave now. We're all riding the wave together, right? It's not just me on the wave and everybody else is down there still paddling. Everybody's on the wave together.
And so was there a certain turning point or revelation that you guys had in the beginning that you were just like, wow, I think, Angelina, you were talking about something that happened right after Hurricane Katrina.
Yeah. So, our marriage, and being in business, I remember we were at a time in our marriage, and it was right after Katrina. And so anything that you could imagine, that could happen, happened. It was kind of like Murphy's Law. So here we are, we're in Baton Rouge, and we're staying in a rental house. Mike's staying in another rental house with, and then there's another house that we had with multiple employees in another house. And we just all kind of like met up and said, okay, well, I guess we're going to be in Baton Rouge because everything here is destroyed, So here you have everyone's homes were damaged, so people traveling back and forth or whatever. It was just a highly stressful time. Shawn had lost his sister during this exact same time within that week. And it was just like, and then we were struggling within each other, and I was not understanding, like, my husband or where he was coming from or anything. And when I'm stressed, I'm up in the middle of the night, or like I'm praying, I'm thinking, I'm whatever. And God had me like write down everything I loved about my husband and all the things that I admired about him. And I wrote like all these things on the list. And then he had me like, I'm like proofreading it. He's like, I'm like, yeah, okay, yeah, that's all the things, I'm like, I'm writing all these things down. And God had me read through it again. And I read it, and he said, all those things you loved about him are also the things you don't love about him. And he wouldn't be the person that he is today if he wasn't that person. He would not be. And for instance, like, my husband always sees the good in people, which is a phenomenal quality. But I would see people try to take advantage of his goodness, and I couldn't stand it. Like, literally, I felt like his protector. Like, he's my protector. I felt like his protector. But it's like, so all the things I would say, no, Shawn, like, I'm telling you this about this person. Like, I don't have a good feeling, da-da-da-da. No. And
I knew it all.
And no. But, I had to look at these things. And God had to say he would never been that person that you admire so much if he wasn't the opposite of it also. Like that is him. Like, you just have two sides of him, You know, you have the side that you admire, but it's the same exact person, the side that drives you nuts. And when I looked at it, then all of a sudden I couldn't be mad about any of those things because he was that quality that I admired so much, you know. And it really taught me a lot about, you know, you get so aggravated about things, but really that's, you know, it's the greatness of him. You know?
Yeah, and I think, you know, it's kind of confusing sometimes because I really don't care. I get up every day. The money is like, it's the furthest thing from my mind. It's the fun and the thrill of the chase. And so, you know, Angelina, she was the accounting person. She was the CFO. And, you know, I'm out here spending money like a drunken sailor, dude. You know, we went in business in 2000, I think, 2000. And I think our first year in business, we made like $500,000. The second year we made $1 million. The third year we made $2 million. The fourth year we made $4 million. We were doubling our business every year. So, man, like some of these instances she's talking to, if I got one of my team guys that are not doing good, I'm just writing them a $5,000. No expecting of getting paid back a $5,000 check. Oh, you can't go get an apartment. You need $10,000 because you're in a jam. And so I just was like, this is, man, I'm making money. People are having problems. Shit, I want to help people, dude. These are people that work with me and are out on the road, you know, doing a great job for me. And so, you know, that's the way that I've always looked at things. It's like the money is not that important to me. Well, shit, it is important though. That's how you live, you know, especially to your wife, who is the CFO, who also is, you know, taking care of the household. It is a big deal. And so we just had to learn. I think that's what she's saying. She started to understand, and the adverse side of that, I started to understand where she was coming from too. I started to understand, man, women tick. I didn't know all this stuff, that women tick differently than men and women were emotional. These are all shit that I learned when I became an adult, dude. Like, I'm trying to think, why do they behave like this? And so as I started
we're learning it while we're working together, and like you're with each other 24/7. And yeah, so I married, you know, I mean, we probably ought to go back into how we started business, but I mean, I married Shawn and he had 2 kids. You know, I was 24 years old when I married him. And, you know, I remember him asking me prior to asking me, he was like, you know, do you see us getting married? And I'm like, yeah, one day, you know, but I just never really put any thought into it. And he's like, well, do you want to be with anybody else? Would you? And I was like, no, like, you're it. And he's like, okay. But I think he felt the need, you know, he had 2 kids and they were about 10 and 13. Mm-hmm. And, you know, he wanted to supply that, like he wanted somebody, and I always joke, he never brought me around the kids until he put the ring on the finger, because he knew the turmoil was going to begin the moment I was interjected into the situation. Yeah. But it's a kind of a joke that we had in our marriage. But really, he was like, I don't want to bring around somebody that's not going to be a part
temporary,
of. Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
It's not forever.
So, you know, he ended up asking me to marry him at my family's Christmas. Mm-hmm. And I had no clue. I mean, no clue that question was coming.
Yeah, we were in Florida.
And he asked me, and I'm like, this is what he meant. And I remember thinking back to our conversation where he said, you know, do you see yourself with anybody else? And then I'm like, no, like, you're it, you know? And I remember, I'm like, wow, I'm on the spot here. Like, I was not thinking about getting married, and not yet. And he, you know, pops the question, and I'm like, yeah, you know, I'll marry you. And so then we go back and we see his family for Christmas, and everybody's like, oh, when y'all get married? I'm like, oh, a year or so, you know. And he gave that till about February, and we had a trip to Italy planned. And he's like, well, the trip to Italy is in July. Why don't we just make that our honeymoon? And I'm like, so he like literally was speeding up everything. And I was just
I knew I had a catch. I was grabbing onto that thing quick, boy.
So, yes, I was like, okay. And then, so we kind of think about it, you know, Shawn and I meet each other. We didn't really like each other, you know, at that point. I mean, he probably could care less. I didn't like him, but he could probably care less about anything. But, you know, was seeing this man that was going through a divorce. And, he'd be upset missing his kids and stuff like that. We actually had some times with work where we all would do things together. And I kind of got to know him a little bit. And then my heart softened towards him. And I was like, he's a nice guy, really cares about his kids. He's going through a hell of a time right now. And, we gradually became friends. And really, I would say, like, that has probably been, other than God being first and foremost, has been the biggest thing that has helped our marriage, is because we're literally best friends with each other. Yeah. Something good, bad, sad, like, we're picking up the phone and talking to each other. And so our relationship began as friends.
And it was friends for a while.
Developed.
I was looking for friends with benefits, but it was just friends. It was just friends. I was trying to get benefits right out the gate. I said, boy, I didn't think these women behave like this anymore, man.
No, like we would just, back then, which we would probably never touch a daiquiri now, but we would go sit down and have a daiquiri and watch a football game and just chat. And
when I met her, so listen.
And I'm not going home with them.
When I meet her, she's 21, 22. Man, like, so what happened was she didn't like me. We have a really big month on closeout. Closeout, we ran late.
Yeah, it's like when we close out in automotive, like we're there till 11 o'clock, sometimes midnight. So you get there early in the morning and you don't get done. And we're all just like, by the end of it, they had a good month sales-wise.
We had a really great month. So I said, why don't we go over to right across the street? There was a little bar that was open on Veterans. And I'll go by the accounting department, because I don't think any of them really like me, because I came in there and I didn't pay them no mind. So I'm like, you know what? We had been there a couple of months. We had a huge month. I think it was like the biggest month they ever had. So I'm like, you know what? And it was late, and that's when we sat down. And I'm like, we sat down and talked, and then we just started to hang out. It was back when Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa were going after the home run record. And so we'd go get daiquiris and we'll watch the baseball games on TV. I don't even like baseball, but it was exciting because these two guys were going back and forth about this home run derby. And we developed a friendship. And there's no doubt about it that's been the glue that's kept everything together, is because before we were lovers, we were friends, like
we
real
can't be
friends.
mad too long, because at some point we have to talk to each other because we want to talk to each other. Yeah. So we really have to kind of figure it out. Plus we work together. Yeah. But it's, we started, I was in the automotive, in the accounting. He had left, went to a dealership, and then kind of went on this road. I mean, what would you say? It was a staffed event company.
Yeah, it was an event company. I got fired, so I worked for Best Chevrolet. They had a change in the guard at Best Chevrolet. Ronnie Lamarck hired me. I went and put together a deal with him, a really great deal. I signed a 12-month contract, which you don't sign contracts in the car business, but that's how bad they wanted me to work with them. And 6 months into it, I got fired. They walk in one day and whack me. And so when I was making a lot of money, I couldn't get a job in the car business. I was going to make $100,000 less or so, and I wasn't able to negotiate the hours that I wanted, because it's like, I'm not going to go work the same hours I'm working, making $300,000 to make $100,000. I'm going to go try something else. So I decided to go on the road and work for this guy that was doing these events all over the country, and we went and became a team for them. Craig, my brother, and we worked for them for probably 6 months, and they started to kind of, play around with our money, not pay us as quick and do this. And I'm like, man, I'm the hell with this, dude. I can see where this is going. So we didn't know what we were doing. We had a client in Joplin, Missouri, and this is our first month in business. We do an event for this car dealer in Joplin, Missouri. And the way that you get paid on these events is you get paid a percentage of the gross profit that you do. And we did a 5-day event. We did $500,000 in profit. And our first week in business, a dealer cut us a check for $125,000, and that's how we got going. And we were just off to the races at that point. And so we wound up getting in the staffed event business. We became, the biggest staffed event company in the country. We did $40 million, I think, in revenue in 2005. So, we were getting flown all over the country by these venture capitalists on their private planes, staying at their vineyards in Napa Valley and going to all these events. And then, she talked about Katrina. Katrina was an inflection point in a lot of ways. And the biggest way in business is I lost focus of what we were doing. I got distracted, and I decided that, hey, New Orleans is destroyed. They have this, this housing problem. let me go start looking for prefab housing. Well, the next thing you know, 6 months later, I've got a full staff in Bali, Indonesia of engineers. We're building $1 million+ spec house to initiate this new prefab building system. And guess what? We lost several $1 million and never got off the ground. Like it never, even as much money as we were making, it wasn't enough to go do a project like this. And so that failed. And at the same time, our business was, I had taken my eye off the ball with the business. And it wasn't built in a day and it didn't come unwound in a day. But about a year later, the wheels started to come off of that thing. And it's like, man, went from being at the top of the ladder to being where we couldn't even pay our bills.
Well, and during that time, so Shawn and I kind of dealt with, and this I think a lot of people in marriage can relate to, we jumped ahead in some of this, at some point, Shawn and I in 200 square foot office, I'm doing, the accounting, bookkeeping, and the advertising, that we're going to do for each one of the, sales. And then Shawn's selling new clients and dealing with, the teams that are going to go work, so we're 200 square feet, little bitty, and we're just doing it all. And it's blowing up and it's making it. And then, at some point, we looked at everything and like it's growing. And then all of a sudden, it just, we kind of had a change. There was a change that was kind of happening where we were looking at the automotive industry. And there was the crash. There was the stock market crash. Mm-hmm. There was the automotive industry crash. We had 3 hurricanes here in Louisiana. And the hurricanes between Florida to here, so we had a lot of money in real estate between Florida and here. And it was just really a time. And then God kind of spoke with Shawn and I. And we had been in the automotive industry in the staffing event business, and it was thriving. It was going well, but then all of a sudden you have this automotive crash that's happening at the same time. So that kind of put a damper, on the way the business was. And Shawn and I looked up, and God kind of said, walk away from the business in that way that we were doing it, because there were some people that were working on the road, and it just wasn't, a great environment, what some of them were doing on the road, and it kind of became, because some of these guys were leaving, it just kind of came a free-for-all, and, Shawn and I felt very uncomfortable just in our spirit that this is not what we represent. And, we had a look, and we had, at that moment, made a decision to walk away from a multi-million-dollar a year company.
Well,
and then we started the prefab, but there was a lot of things that happened in our marriage during that time. So you walked away from making money in a certain way, and then you're like, oh, but we have real estate, oh, we have money in stock market, oh, we have all these things. Well, what happens when everything crashed? And we looked up, and our whole life as we knew it had changed. And it's like, you can't write a script because usually it's like, well, have money in stock market, have money in real estate, have money, the way that you do your business or the way you make income, and when all these things kind of go to hell in a handbag along with hurricanes and, everything, you look up, and it was definitely, we had many years. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was several years.
And I lost my way. I had lost my. Yeah. I remember back on these things. So what happened with Katrina is I got distracted on this new project, and I really lost interest because, we had grown so big so fast. And when I took my eye off the ball, I didn't realize one of the pieces of glue. And, listen to other entrepreneurs and people that own companies. Maybe this is something you guys can take and learn from. But, man, you can't focus on too many different things, because what happened is when everybody in our organization realized that I was focused on a different project, then that was a symbol to them that I had lost interest, right? That this wasn't the primary focus, and everything started to fall apart when that happened, just because the glue was always, hey, we're trying to do something bigger than ourselves. We're trying to do something great. And then they could see that. And I was the one imparting that kind of vision and where we were going and keeping everything together, because the car business is a tough business. Take the car business and now put guys on the road that can go, to a city, a strange city. They're gone. If they do something bogus while they're there, they're gone and they've run to the hills. And so I woke up and because I had lost that connection with our team. They didn't understand the big vision. It was every man for himself at that point, right? It wasn't about the collective anymore. It was about each man for himself, which really is the way the world is right now, right? Everybody's out for themselves at the end of the day in a lot of ways. That's what happened, because that glue, I'm the reason that things happen like they did, just because of losing focus. But now I realize that was an important lesson for me to learn, because there were greater things in front of me, but there went a while when all that came unwound. I didn't know what to do. Like, I had lost my way. The business that I had was failing. Then the prefab new venture lost millions. And so, man, I'm trying to figure out who I am again. And I'm 40 something years old. It's like, whoa, how the hell am I sitting across the table from a bankruptcy lawyer when 2 years ago I had millions of dollars in the bank? Like, man, I've read about this kind of stuff, but I didn't think this could possibly be true. And this just shows you, this is like, one of many things that have happened in my life, in our lives, where God has shown up. We're sitting at a table with a bankruptcy lawyer, and we decided we couldn't do it. I remember sitting there and I'm like, man, we can't. We had already written him a deposit check, and we said, hey, I can't do this, man. And he left. The next day, we get a check in the mail from a piece of property that we owned in Florida that got sold at a big loss that we took a big hit on. And I think it was $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 check that was in the mailbox the next day. And it was like God was showing us, hey, man, like, listen, guys, this is what life's all about. The journey is the journey. But you just got to understand, if you keep moving and going, I'm going to meet you where you are. And, man, you can't even imagine.
We spent many years where it was definitely moments where, you're like, I would tell Shawn, like, we have $125 left this month, and tuition's coming up for the kids, and I remember just like, so going from, it was really, for me, it became a time where I really learned how to trust God in just a different way. It was so eye-opening, because when it's not all laid out for you, when it's not, when you don't see the whole plan, like, it just didn't make sense. A lot of things during those times, it kind of just felt like bad things just kept happening. And I look back at it now, and Shawn and I had grown so much as people in our marriage, in our relationship, and really more so in our faith in God, because sometimes, like, I was one of those people that always believed, if you're a good person, if you do good things, and you're, you just trusted in God, that good things happen to you. But it was a time that I realized bad things happen to good people, but God can turn it around and use it.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. Yeah, it was. It was quite the. Knowing that. I look back on it now, and I remember, you being upset with me because I'm just whistling Dixie. We got no money. We don't know, Shawn. I don't know how we're going to pay tuition. And she said, "Listen, I understand that you have faith, but I made a promise to God on April 26, 2004, when I got saved at the Ritz-Carlton, that God, nobody will ever know in this world whether I have millions or I have nothing. They'll never be able to see a difference in my demeanor, the way I behave, my outlook on life." So, man, I made that promise. And I remember Angelina saying, "Shawn, I understand you have faith, but you are now crossed the line of faith and you're delusional." You are delusional, because we have to pull our kids out of private school. Look at what we have in our bank account. But I don't know why, dude. It just doesn't, I just never concern myself with it. And, I talk about this all the time. The best way to fix something is to make a promise to yourself, because you can't lie to yourself. And I made that promise on April 26th. And little did I know, because I'm at the top of the world when I make this promise. God, I'll serve you no matter what, if I'm rich, if I'm poor. Well, I had no idea that the poor thing was going to. Yeah. The other thing it did is it made us really just pull our lifestyle back, right? Because I always said, there's money trees. I'll just go plant. If this tree goes away, I'll just go plant a new tree. And so we lived like that. We traveled all over the world. We, did whatever we wanted to, had a nanny that traveled with us. And when this happened, we had to get lean again, and we've stayed lean, which was a really great change in life. We needed an adjustment, and I guess we weren't listening good enough. And so God brought us to the adjustment, and we needed to face it no matter what. And so, I can't say that there's nothing but good that came out of that, because miracles just continued to show up for us.
It was just painfully good, but it was good.
Yeah. And
it was just, when you're going through it, or when you're going through these tough moments, it doesn't feel good. Like none of it feels good. Now I look back at it and I'm like, well, I mean, it all needed to happen. Yeah. And we're okay. And the funny thing is when every time you come out of a circumstance, you look back at it and you're like, but I survived.
Yeah.
And God came through.
Shit gives you superpower every time.
And when you're in the moment,
and
when you're in the moment, you don't see all the little miracles that are happening at that time. But when you look back, you're like, God definitely showed up. He definitely came through. There was never a time we didn't pay a bill or anything. And a lot of things, it was literally on time, in the moment, God showing up. So it was a lot of faith, in us. Shawn was not writing the checks for the bills at the time, so he was living in the faith. I was more of like, because he wasn't writing the and seeing the numbers go down, but I was seeing the numbers. But it's amazing how you see God show up when you look back. And so every time I go through something now, or it's like I always remember, geez, I'm in all these years of life, God has always showed up for you every single time. It's like they say in the Bible, the birds, they don't worry. The trees don't worry. They always get fed. They know it. It's almost like they have the faith that we should have sometimes, right? But, I've had to learn and grow and get that faith. I think Shawn has it instilled in him, like, everything's going to be fine. It's all okay.
Because it's just money. It's just lifestyle. Yeah. It's just...
it's whatever.
And so do you think that this is something that every entrepreneur, business owner should face or have faced before? Like, it's a certain, wow, the bad times really make you appreciate the good even more.
Yeah.
And I've always thought, too, if I don't try certain things, this is just me. I'm like, what am I going to tell my kids one day? That I was too afraid to go out and do these things?
Exactly.
What am I going to teach my kids? Yeah. So do you think that this is, molded you guys into how you run your company today, into how you hire people? You see certain little qualities. How has that really changed your complete perspective and outlook?
Yeah, I think that your life, we're basically just accumulation of our life experiences, and the decisions that we've made have arrived us to where we are today. So I think that everybody is picking up little pieces and nuggets along the way. And I think the people that make it, I look at life as a game, right? And at certain things that you do or accomplish, or, whether it's self-accomplishments or it's accomplishments in the business world or the sports world, you're climbing a rung on that ladder. You're reaching another level, right? And so if you look at it like that, you're always trying to understand the situation, good and bad. Why did those things happen? What was your part in it? And how did you react to that? And what were the components of that? And there's usually the mistake that happens, and then your reaction to that, and then how do you fix it? And I think, when we started to really understand how to, it's muscle memory, just like working out. If you go through hard things and you accomplish things, not only does it allow you to persevere in the future, but it allows you to see those same qualities that you have in other people.
And don't be a victim of it.
Exactly.
I feel like a lot of people get stuck in being a victim. This should have never happened. This should have never happened to me. Why is this happening? But, stuff happens. Mm-hmm. But it's really how you process what you're going through and how you then can turn it around and, change your thinking. Mm-hmm. because you're really not a victim, and like stuff happens.
Yeah.
Stuff is just going to, people have, there are layers of onions, things that have happened in their life that nobody would ever guess has happened to people, but, some people carry those things, and some people have grown and changed who they are and become better people because of those things. And, and I see that so much in Shawn, in every circumstance and every negative circumstances that we've dealt with, it's really to grow, and really the optimism of life and the goodness that's still in life, and really focusing on all the great things that we've really had in life and the blessings. Because Shawn and I look back at it, and, when you scale everything back, you realize, like, we were literally just as happy, really. Now, the circumstances sucked that was around us, but we were actually just as happy in our home with our family, broke as can be, and the way that we live. Like, we were like, wow, we really don't even need much, do we?
Nope. No,
we really don't.
It was a good gut check that we needed to have that, because I think that there's great things in store for us. And so all of those things that we went through were preparing us for what's to come. Yeah.
And that brings me to my next question. So we've covered in a nutshell how we've got to where we are today. What can we expect for the next 5 to 10 years?
It's going to be fun, man. It's going to be fun. So,
I think the next 5.
Yeah.
Or the next 5, I really think the next 3 are really going to be amazing years that I see. And I'm actually very excited for Shawn, because this is kind of like his creative baby. He has such a phenomenal imagination, he's so intelligent. So many people come to him, business owners, friends, and they want a piece of nugget out of Shawn's brain, and he's so genius in everything that he does, that I really feel when we launch the MarketingBox, and it's really let out there what all it's going to be, I'm just excited, because this baby has started from something totally different in the beginning into what it's going to be. It's been, more of an agency business, and for it to turn into a small, medium business and also have the agency component to it is going to be amazing, And a little story about MarketingBox and kind of how it came along is, we went through COVID, and Shawn was, he really just felt in his heart, like, what can we do to help these small businesses that are around? And we had a friend that owned a restaurant close to our home, and, he was struggling, talking about how financially, like, restaurants were just struggling during the time of COVID, and what can we do? And, and we started with that business and another business on the South Shore, and really kind of just doing a little advertisement for them. And we thought about it, we were like, the problem with small businesses is they can't afford a graphic artist. They don't have a large budget. They can't afford, all the steps that it takes to really put on a great campaign. And so when we decided, we was going through this, and that's where the idea is, how can we help small businesses be able to afford something like this? Put all these advertising options in one bucket, one place for you to do things, and make it simple and easy and a click-through way of doing it. Then, I feel like any great idea comes from helping and wanting to do for other people, and Shawn is the same way. He's always, that's, part of his whole podcasting that Shawn thought it was, prior to launching MarketingBox, how can we highlight small businesses? How can we, draw attention to them and maybe help them along, and so I just feel like every great idea comes from how to help, how to serve, how to do, and so I think MarketingBox, when it's all done, I'm very excited.
Yeah, I'm excited
I'm very excited for where it's going to become.
I was thinking about this the other day as I was walking on the treadmill. I'm like, if your dreams and goals don't excite you and scare you a little bit, they're not big enough.
Yeah. It's
And
true.
I feel like that's what the marketing box is. We all get like a glow on our face when we're talking about what it can and what it will be.
Yeah.
But it is a little scary, but that's the good part.
It is.
Because it's not big enough if it doesn't
It's
scare you a little bit.
It's going to be
like,
a
oh.
lot of scary. It's going to be, but it's going to be, the heart of it, the heart of the mission of it is so good. It's so good. To think that a small business can utilize a resource that they can actually afford. I'm excited about it.
I am too.
And it's his baby. It's his baby. So I'm excited for him because it's been many years in the making.
I would say it's probably just as much Mike's baby as it is my baby.
Yeah, I've heard Mike refer to it as his child.
Definitely. You kind of
stuck.
stuck with us. What has it been, 17
He better know how to
years?
fight. If he ever tries to leave, he's
You've
going
been
to have to be able
together
to whip
with
my
us
ass.
almost our whole marriage. Yeah.
That's hilarious.
I've been married to y'all just about as long as
As long as
Yeah.
we married, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything that we haven't covered that you'll think we should?
No, I don't think so.
I think that was a great
Yeah. This
discussion.
is a good dig.
Yeah.
Very deep dive.
Yeah.
Well, maybe I can talk about where I see us in the next 5 years.
Yeah.
Okay, where do you see us?
So I see us. So right now we are a company of 12 people, and if this is what I think is going to happen this coming year, we're going to
Speak
launch
it into existence, baby.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're gonna launch a product. Man, it has so many exciting features. Man, I just can't open the bag right now. But we are bringing a tool to the small and medium business market that is many great companies as they have right now. We are bringing in a game changer to the marketing software business, not just for small businesses. We've refined our craft right now because we work with some of the biggest companies in the world, literally the biggest companies in the world we work with as either an agency, a tech partner, and we've accomplished things that are very well accomplished in the enterprise, the large business kind of world. And the most exciting thing is that we've figured out how to distill those tactics, those strategies, the way that a large business looks at data, looks at messaging, looks at channels, and we're going to bring that same level of creativity, of copywriting, of graphic design down to the small and medium businesses, because we need to, when you look at a small business, man, those guys have the passion to do what they do. The biggest problem they have is a lack of capital. The second biggest problem is a lack of understanding of marketing and advertising. We are going to put the tools into these small businesses' hands that are going to even the playing field, because really that's the heartbeat of this whole country is small businesses, right? It's the thing that makes us move, and it's the thing that excites me the most is to get out there and champion. This is all about giving for us, man, because if we make the byproduct of our product and why it's so fun to come in and work every day is because the product we sell help other people have a better life. It's a great thing to come into, man. There's no heartache, there's no downside. Hey, if we can get people on board our product, when they start to use it, it's going to help their business be better, which ultimately helps their life be better, right? So that's what we're bringing to the market. And, to put any barriers on us, we, for the next 5 years, we think that we're going to be a multi-billion-dollar company in the next 5 years, and that's the way we've always thought. It's just taken us a long, weird path to kind of get to where we are, but that's always been the vision. And nothing that I've seen makes me believe that we can't do that plus more. It's a game changer. We've said this, Mike and I, 17, we're trying to change the world through our abilities, our talent, our time, and our treasures. We want to go make an impact to change the world. And the way we're doing that is by imparting all of this knowledge that we have to the heartbeat of our country to arm them with the ability to go compete with the biggest guys in the country. That's what we're here to do. And it's all about, that's it. That's the mission, dude. And as long as we stay to that mission and continue to innovate and think outside the box and never be complacent and always walk the plank, like, I don't have any doubt in the world, because this is the way it's worked in life. We're going to accomplish everything we set out to do.
And so that I say amen.
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 All right.
Thanks for watching today, guys.